The doors did not open. They moved. A seam of white light split the towering obsidian wall of the galactic conclave chamber, and the air pressure shifted as if the station itself had inhaled. Every species present felt it. The warlord straightened. The diplomats went silent. The admirals stopped whispering. At the center of the chamber stood a semicircle of thrones, each carved from the native material of its occupant's world: crystal, bone, alloy, living wood. And at the far end, the largest throne remained empty. Until now. The seam widened. Heat rolled into the chamber. Not metaphorical heat. Actual, physical heat. A figure stepped through the light. 7 feet tall. Crimson scaled along the shoulders and collarbone. Black ceremonial armor fused seamlessly against draconic musculature. A crown of curved obsidian horns framed her face like a halo forged in war. Her eyes were molten gold. The Dragon Empress had arrived. No one announced her name. No one needed to. She ruled 6 sectors of contested space. Her fleets had ended 3 expansionist wars in a single decade. Entire civilizations adjusted trade routes to avoid provoking her empire. She did not attend summits. Summits came to her. And today, the galaxy had gathered because she had made a single, unprecedented declaration. I will choose an heir. A ripple of tension passed through the chamber. Dragons did not declare heirs lightly. And they certainly did not choose them publicly. One by one, representatives stepped forward. A war prince of the Kala Dominion, genetically enhanced, armored in exoskeletal plating, bowed and declared his bloodline undefeated. A telepathic sovereign from the NYTH ascendancy offered a psychic lineage spanning 8 generations of hive queens. A cybernetic emperor projected holographic battle simulations proving strategic dominance. Each spoke of strength, of power, of conquest. The Empress listened. Unmoving. Expressionless. Then she rose. The temperature climbed further as she stepped down from her throne platform. The chamber parted instinctively. She did not walk toward the war prince. She did not pause before the psychic queen. She did not even glance at the cybernetic emperor. She walked past them all. Past the elite guard formations. Past the front ranks of ambassadors. Toward the rear of the chamber. Where the minor species stood. Where the observers were placed. Where the humans had been assigned a modest diplomatic position, Sector 3, Outer Ring. The human delegation had not expected attention. They were present as neutral trade intermediaries. Stabilizers. Analysts. Quiet participants in galactic politics. At the center of their small group stood a man who looked profoundly out of place in this room of titans. Ethan Caldwell adjusted his glasses when he was nervous. He was adjusting them now. Mid-30s. Slim build. Dark suit slightly wrinkled from travel. A data slate tucked under one arm. He was not a soldier. He was not a ruler. He was a systems analyst attached to Earth's diplomatic corps, assigned to observe trade modeling patterns. He had spent most of the summit silently cataloging behavioral shifts in alien negotiation styles. He did not notice the chamber falling quiet behind him. He noticed when the heat reached him. Slowly, Ethan looked up. The Dragon Empress stood directly in front of him. Up close, she was overwhelming. Not merely physically imposing, though she was, but gravitational. As if space itself bent slightly around her presence. Every camera drone in the chamber pivoted. Every species leaned forward. The Empress studied him. Her golden eyes did not blink. Ethan swallowed. Your Radiance, he said carefully, voice softer than the chamber expected, I believe there may be some mistake. A murmur rippled outward. The Empress tilted her head. No mistake, she said. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried effortlessly to every corner of the chamber, resonant, controlled, edged with restrained fire. You are Ethan Caldwell of Earth. Yes, he answered automatically. You are not a warrior. No. You hold no political office. No. You command no fleet. No. A few alien dignitaries allowed quiet, disbelieving sounds. The Empress stepped closer. Close enough that the heat of her breath brushed his face. And yet, she continued, you have de-escalated 12 interspecies trade conflicts in the last 4 years. Ethan blinked. That was statistical modeling. You predicted famine on Torvax before their own ministers. That was climate trend analysis. You rerouted a mining dispute that would have triggered border war. That was probability mapping N. Her eyes sharpened. You are not loud, she said. Silence. Deep. Absolute. The chamber felt suspended. The war prince scoffed audibly. A scholar, he barked. You would dilute dragon blood with her. The Empress did not turn her head. The war prince's voice died in his throat. She extended one clawed hand. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Simply decisive. I will take him, she said calmly. The words struck like an orbital impact. He will father my heir. The chamber erupted. Outrage. Shock. Disbelief. Strategic recalculations racing across 1,000 neural architectures. The human delegation froze. Ethan's glasses slipped slightly down his nose. He began faintly. The Empress' gaze softened by a fraction, something only the closest observers noticed. The galaxy mistakes volume for strength, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos without rising. Her eyes never left Ethan. I do not. She straightened to her full height. And for the first time since entering the chamber, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the edge of her lips. The most dangerous woman in the galaxy had made her choice. And she had chosen the quietest man in the room. The galaxy did not yet understand what that meant. But it would. The shouting lasted 12 minutes. In galactic diplomacy, that was considered restrained. Lucas Hale stood at the center of it all, wishing with every fiber of his being that he had chosen a different career. Or a different planet. Or possibly a different galaxy. This is a destabilizing decision, roared the Caravian warlord. Genetic recklessness, hissed the psychic monarch. Probability of dynastic collapse increased by 37%, droned the synthetic warmind. The Dragon Empress did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence alone bent the atmosphere. Anger ricocheted around her like pebbles striking a mountain. Lucas glanced toward the Terran ambassador, who looked as though he had aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. Is this negotiable? Lucas whispered. The ambassador swallowed. I don't think we're negotiating. Across the chamber, rival dragon nobles stared at Lucas as if he were a contagious disease. One of them, Lord Vareth of the Crimson Brood, stepped forward, massive wings folding behind him. You insult our bloodline, Vareth said, voice echoing like distant thunder. This human is unproven. Unhardened. Unworthy. Lucas raised a tentative hand. I would like to agree with parts of that statement, he said nervously. Several delegates actually blinked. The Empress turned her head slightly toward him. You would decline? She asked. The room quieted instantly. Lucas felt 700 gazes press into him. I don't even understand what's happening, he admitted. I'm a conflict analyst. I study de-escalation models and diplomatic frameworks. I don't lead armies. I don't conquer systems. I barely survive staff meetings. A ripple of uneasy laughter spread among the minor species. Vareth sneered. You see? Weak. The word hung in the air like a challenge. The Empress regarded Lucas thoughtfully. Walk with me, she said. Without waiting for approval from anyone, she turned and exited the central chamber. After a full second of stunned silence, Lucas realized she expected him to follow. He did. Behind closed doors. The private observation balcony overlooked the starfield beyond Accord Station. For the first time since she had stood, the Empress seemed still. Not imposing. Not theatrical. Just present. Lucas kept a careful distance. Your Majesty, he began cautiously, with respect, why me? She did not answer immediately. Instead, she gestured toward the galaxy beyond the viewport. Tell me what you see. Lucas blinked. Stars. Yes. Several trade corridors intersecting near this sector. Increased fleet traffic. Probably tension after the Caravian expansion last cycle. She turned her head slightly. You observe patterns. That's my job. You also observe people. Lucas hesitated. Sometimes. She faced him fully now. During the summit, when the warlords displayed their strength, what did you feel? Intimidated. And? He frowned slightly. Concerned. For yourself? For everyone. That answer lingered between them. You were the only delegate in that chamber, she said quietly, whose heart rate spiked when the psychic monarch extended his field, not out of fear for yourself, but for the weaker species present. Lucas opened his mouth, then closed it. That's not unusual, he said finally. It is, she replied. The study. I have studied humanity for 47 of your years, the Empress continued. Your wars. Your collapses. Your recoveries. Lucas winced slightly. We're not exactly a shining example. No, she agreed calmly. You are not. He looked at her, surprised. You are unstable. Emotional. Self-destructive. Thank you. But you adapt, she continued. You endure catastrophe and redesign yourselves. You nearly annihilated your own species, and chose restraint. Lucas stared at the stars. We didn't do that alone, he said softly. We were terrified. Yes. Her golden eyes locked onto his. You evolved beyond domination not because you were incapable of it, but because you understood its cost. A long silence followed. My people value strength, she said. But strength without stability fractures empires. And you think I'm stable? Lucas asked incredulously. I think, she said, that you are not ruled by ego. He laughed once under his breath. That's because I don't have much of one. Precisely. The real question. Lucas shifted uneasily. This isn't just political, is it? No. It's biological. Yes. You want your heir to be calmer. I want my heir, she corrected, to inherit power without needing to prove it. He absorbed that slowly. In the chamber, the dragon nobles had radiated dominance. Volume. Pressure. Display. He had radiated discomfort. You chose the quietest person in the room, he said. Yes. That's risky. So is repeating the same mistake for 1,000 years. The weight of that statement settled heavily. Behind the viewport, fleets moved like distant fireflies. If I refuse? Lucas asked carefully. She did not hesitate. You are free to refuse. That startled him more than anything else she had said. You wouldn't compel me? I do not require obedience, she said evenly. I require alignment. He studied her now, not as a mythic dragon sovereign, but as a ruler making a calculated decision. You think humanity's strength isn't its armies, he said slowly. No. You think it's restraint, she finished. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her expression. Strength that must be displayed, she said softly, is not true strength. Lucas looked back toward the chamber doors, where powerful beings waited in outrage. You're about to make enemies, he warned. I already have them. And me? He asked. She held his gaze. You, the Dragon Empress said calmly, are the only one in that room who does not want power. The realization struck him like sudden gravity. And for the first time since she had spoken his name, Lucas Hale stopped trembling. The emergency alert cut through the summit like a blade. Red light flooded the Accord chamber. Delegates froze mid-argument. Security drones deployed instantly. Translation grids flickered as overlapping voices collided in panic. Unidentified fleet emerging from slip space. Energy signatures unknown. Trajectory locked on the station. The Caravian warlord snarled. Sabotage. The psychic monarch's minefield expanded violently. An assassination attempt. The synthetic warmind began calculating defensive probability trees. The Dragon Empress did not move. Lucas felt his pulse spike. Not for himself. For everyone. Accord Station was neutral territory. Packed with diplomats. Civilian staff. Smaller species with no defensive capability. If this was an attack, it would be a massacre. How many ships? The Empress asked calmly. 17, replied a station officer. Configuration irregular. No matching database signature. Vareth stepped forward. We mobilize. Immediate retaliation. You cannot deploy full weapons inside neutral orbit, shouted another delegate. Evacuate the lesser species, someone cried. Chaos swelled. Lucas's eyes moved across the tactical display projected above the chamber floor. 17 ships. Angular hulls. Close formation. Too close. They're not an attack spread, he said under his breath. No one heard him. They're too tight, he said louder. The Empress turned her head slightly. Explain. He swallowed, stepping forward despite every instinct telling him to shrink back. If they intended orbital bombardment, they'd disperse to maximize angles. The tactical hologram zoomed in. They're clustered. That formation is defensive. The synthetic warmind rotated its projection. Recalculating. Vareth glared at Lucas. What would you know of fleet behavior, human? Lucas ignored him. They want something, he said quickly. Look at their vector. The projection adjusted again. The ships weren't targeting the core chamber. They were locking onto the station's central communications spire. They're targeting broadcast capacity, Lucas said. A heavy silence fell. Not destruction, he added. Visibility. The psychic monarch narrowed his glowing eyes. Clarify. They don't want to destroy the summit, Lucas said, thinking faster now. They want everyone to see what happens here. The Dragon Empress's gaze sharpened. Political leverage, she said quietly. Lucas nodded. If they strike, it's not about damage. It's about spectacle. The chamber fell into stunned quiet. The reveal. Signal incoming, a station officer shouted. The main viewport flickered. A figure appeared, armored, scaled, unmistakably draconic. But not of the Empress's brood. Gasps echoed. It was High Warlord Soren, an exiled dragon commander thought lost during a border purge decades earlier. Greetings, sovereigns, Soren's voice rumbled across the chamber. You gather to secure a dynasty. His eyes burned toward the Empress. I gather to correct one. The rival dragon noble stiffened. Vareth stepped forward. Soren is dead. Incorrect, the synthetic warmind droned. The Empress rose slowly to her full height. You emerge now, she said evenly. Why? Soren's gaze shifted, landing on Lucas. Because you insult our blood, Soren replied. You would dilute dragon supremacy with prey. Lucas felt that word hit again. Prey. He forced himself not to react. If you proceed, Soren continued, my fleet will disable this station. No mass casualties. But your humiliation will echo across the stars. Murmurs erupted. 17 ships cannot challenge the Empress, Vareth growled. They are not meant to, Lucas said quietly. All eyes turned to him. They are bait, he explained. He doesn't need to win. He needs to fracture confidence. The Empress watched him carefully. If dragon blood is seen as compromised, Lucas continued, internal rivals multiply. Civil unrest increases. Political instability spreads. The synthetic warmind paused. Projection aligns with human analysis. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Soren smiled on the screen. You see, Empress? Even your chosen human understands. Lucas exhaled slowly. He wasn't thinking about pride. Or dragons. Or bloodlines. He was thinking about outcomes. If you strike him now, Lucas said quietly, you validate his narrative. Vareth snarled. We cannot allow this insult to stand. Insults aren't lethal, Lucas replied. Escalation is. The Empress stepped closer to him. What do you suggest? She asked. 700 delegates leaned forward. The human move. Lucas swallowed. Open the channel. Soren's image sharpened. You wish to surrender, Empress? Soren mocked. Lucas stepped into view. I'd like to speak, he said. A ripple of disbelief swept the chamber. Soren tilted his head. The prey speaks. Lucas ignored the provocation. You want spectacle, he said calmly. You want the galaxy to see dragon instability. Soren's eyes narrowed slightly. You want doubt. Silence stretched. So let's give them clarity instead, Lucas continued. Broadcast this conversation. The chamber gasped. You claim dragon supremacy, Lucas said. Yet you hide behind disruption. Soren's wings flared slightly. You accuse me? I challenge you, Lucas replied evenly. Publicly. Not to combat. Not to dominance. To debate. The chamber went utterly still. 17 ships versus one conversation, Lucas said. Let the galaxy watch which one carries more weight. Soren hesitated. The psychic monarch whispered, he is shifting the battlefield. The synthetic warmind recalculated again. Probability of internal destabilization decreasing. The Empress did not blink. You gamble boldly for one who fears power, she observed softly. Lucas didn't look at her. I'm not gambling, he said. He is. Soren's expression darkened. If I refuse, the warlord growled. Then you prove my point, Lucas answered. The silence that followed felt heavier than any weapon. 17 warships hung in orbit. And for the first time, they looked small. Soren's transmission flickered. We will speak, he said at last. The fleet powered down its weapons. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Empress turned slowly toward Lucas. Her golden eyes burned, not with dominance. With recognition. You do not escalate, she said quietly. You absorb. Lucas exhaled, adrenaline finally crashing through him. I just hate unnecessary wars, he replied. Across the chamber, Delegates who had mocked him minutes ago stared in stunned silence. The Dragon Empress faced the assembly. "You mistake silence for weakness," she said calmly. "It is calculation." And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand what she saw. The debate with Sorin lasted 4 hours. By the end of it, the rebel warlord's fleet had withdrawn beyond neutral space, not defeated, not destroyed, but diminished. Publicly. Across every major network. Sorin had expected fury. He had prepared for fire. He had not prepared for calm. And the galaxy had noticed. Which meant, of course, the dragons could not ignore it. 3 days later, the ancient rite was invoked. The trial of pressure. It had not been used in over 2 centuries. Lucas learned this from the Terran ambassador, who looked both impressed and deeply concerned. "It's not combat," the ambassador explained carefully. "That's good," Lucas replied. "It's worse. The arena of minds." The dragon arena was not built for spectacle. It was built for dominance. A circular chamber carved from black starstone. No weapons. No armor. No shields. Just presence. Dragon physiology carried more than physical strength. Their species projected instinctive hierarchical force, a biological pressure that asserted dominance over rivals. Lesser beings collapsed under it. Some fainted. Some panicked. A few had died. The rite was simple. Stand. Endure. Do not kneel. Lord Vareth had formally challenged the Empress's decision. If the human cannot withstand dragon will, he had declared before the council, then he cannot stand beside dragon blood. The Empress had accepted. Now Lucas stood alone in the center of the arena. No podium. No data screen. No comforting diplomatic protocols. Just stone. And Vareth. The rival dragon lord entered opposite him, wings partially unfurled, scales gleaming crimson beneath the arena lights. He was larger than the Empress. Broader. Intimidation made flesh. "You may still withdraw," Vareth rumbled. Lucas adjusted his glasses. "I appreciate the offer." Vareth's eyes narrowed slightly. "You will break." "Probably," Lucas admitted. A murmur rippled through the dragon tiers above. The pressure. The signal was given. Vareth inhaled. And released. The air thickened. Not physically. Instinctively. It was like gravity increasing, but only inside Lucas's mind. His chest tightened. His pulse spiked violently. A primal voice deep within his nervous system screamed. "Submit. Lower your gaze. Kneel." His legs trembled. Across the chamber, minor species observers felt the edge of it and recoiled. Vareth stepped forward slowly, amplifying the field. "You are prey," he said softly. Lucas's vision blurred at the edges. His body wanted to comply. Every evolutionary survival instinct urged him to fold. He swallowed. And did something Vareth did not expect. He breathed. Slowly. In through his nose. Out through his mouth. He did not resist the pressure. He acknowledged it. Fear was there. Yes. But so was understanding. "I know what you're doing," Lucas said quietly, voice slightly strained. Vareth increased the intensity. "You are beneath us." Lucas's knees dipped, just slightly. Gasps echoed. But he did not kneel. "You're trying to trigger submission reflex," Lucas continued, focusing on rhythm instead of fear. "It's biological." Vareth's eyes flickered. "You cannot analyze instinct." Lucas gave a faint, shaky smile. "Of course I can." The pressure increased again. Pain throbbed behind his eyes. But Lucas had lived through panic attacks before. He had endured public speaking disasters. He had survived online harassment campaigns during Earth political crises. He knew the feeling of being overwhelmed. And he knew something else. Feelings peak. Then they fall. He did not push back. He did not flare defiance. He simply stayed. Steady. The arena sensors began registering irregularities. Vareth frowned slightly. The pressure field was designed to force reaction, aggression, collapse, or submission. Lucas did none of the three. "You will yield," Vareth growled. Lucas's voice came quieter now. "I don't need to win," he said. The Dragon Lord faltered. "I just need to stand." Seconds stretched. The field intensified one final time. Observers leaned forward. Minor species shields flickered. Sweat rolled down Lucas's temple. His legs shook violently. But he did not kneel. Not because he was stronger. But because he was not trying to dominate. He was trying to endure. The arena monitors shifted from red to amber. Veritha's breathing grew heavier. For the first time, the dragon's field wavered. Not broken. Not defeated. Just destabilized. Because it had nothing to feed on. Lucas was not challenging. Not attacking. Not submitting. He was absorbing. The pressure field collapsed. Silence slammed into the chamber. Verith stared at the human in disbelief. Lucas blinked, slightly dizzy, but upright. "I'm still here," he said softly. The judgment. The dragon Empress descended into the arena. Her presence alone silenced every whisper. She looked at Verith. "You pushed." "Yes." "You intensified." "Yes." "And he knelt?" Veritha's jaw tightened. "No." She turned to Lucas. "You resisted." Lucas shook his head faintly. "No." Her eyes glowed brighter. "Correct." She faced the assembly. "Dominance requires opposition," she declared. "Power that depends on fear requires fear to survive." Her gaze swept across the dragon nobles. "He does not break," she said calmly. "He does not flare. He does not posture." She placed one clawed hand gently against Lucas's shoulder. "He absorbs." The word echoed through the arena. And in that moment, the galaxy stopped seeing a shy human, and began seeing something far more dangerous. Not fire. Not fury. Not conquest. Stability. And that, the Dragon Empress knew, was the rarest strength of all. The heir did not roar when he was born. That was the first sign. In dragon tradition, newborns of imperial blood released a shockwave cry, a biological declaration of dominance. It cracked stone. It bent knees. It announced hierarchy before language ever could. This child did not. He opened his eyes. And watched. The chamber, reinforced with gravity stabilizers and psychic dampeners, remained intact. Observers braced for impact that never came. The infant's scales shimmered faintly along his shoulders, obsidian edged with a subtle silver undertone. Human eyes. Dragon pupils. Steady. The attending elder dragon stepped back slowly. "There is power," she whispered. "But it is contained." The Dragon Empress looked down at her son. Lucas Hale stood beside her, exhausted, overwhelmed, and profoundly aware that history had just pivoted. The child did not cry. He studied the room. And then, impossibly, his tiny hand closed around Lucas's finger. The psychic monitors spiked. Not from dominance. From synchronization. The years that followed. The galaxy expected instability. Predictions ran wild across military networks. Hybrid volatility risk, 62%. Dragon faction fracture probability, 41%. Human political backlash, 18%. None of it happened. The boy, named Aurelian by Dragon Right, Ari by Lucas in private, grew without spectacle. He did not challenge other dragon young for territory. He did not flare his presence to command submission. When confronted by aggressive broodlings, he simply looked at them. And they stopped. Not because he crushed them, but because he did not react. Dragon elders found themselves unsettled. Human diplomats found themselves hopeful. By the age of 6, Ari had already done something no dragon heir in recorded history had achieved. He mediated. 2 rival dragon houses approached the imperial court over mining rights near a volatile pulsar cluster. Tensions ran high. Old blood feuds resurfaced. Tradition demanded strength display. Instead, the child asked a question. "Why do you need the same star?" Silence followed. The houses began explaining resource projections. Energy output models. Territorial pride. Ari listened. Then adjusted the model. "You're competing for peak output," he said simply. "Offset your cycles." The chamber blinked. Dragon elders recalculated. Staggered extraction windows would double efficiency without conflict. There was no roar. No command. No dominance display. Just solution. The dispute dissolved. The first of many. The shift. The Galactic Council reconvened 7 years after the heir's birth. Not in crisis. In curiosity. Reports had accumulated. Border wars diffused before ignition. Trade disputes resolved in hours. Dragon military posture adjusted from expansionist to stabilization doctrine. The Terran ambassador, now considerably grayer, addressed the assembly. "You classified humanity as emergent stabilizers," he said calmly. That was inaccurate. Across the chamber, the synthetic warmind processed updated metrics. Human-dragon hybrid influence index rising across 14 sectors. The psychic monarch inclined his luminous head. Conflict frequency declining. Lord Vareth, once the loudest critic, stood silently among his brood. The Dragon Empress rose. My heir has demonstrated no conquest, she said evenly. No expansion. No suppression. She paused. And yet stability increases. The chamber absorbed the truth. The galaxy had expected fire and fury from dragon blood strengthened by human resilience. What it received instead was restraint reinforced by power. The quiet lesson. Later that cycle, a young cadet from a minor species approached Lucas in the outer gardens of the Imperial complex. Is it true, the cadet asked nervously, that humans are weak compared to dragons? Lucas smiled faintly. Physically? Yes. The cadet hesitated. Then why did the Empress choose you? Lucas looked across the courtyard where Ari stood between two towering dragon nobles, calmly explaining orbital distribution models. She didn't choose strength, Lucas said softly. She chose direction. The cadet frowned slightly. I don't understand. Lucas watched his son, not dominating, not demanding, simply present. For most of history, he said, power meant pushing. Humans learned something the hard way. What? That pushing eventually pushes back. The cadet looked again at the air. He doesn't look afraid. He isn't. Of dragons? Of himself. The recognition. Years later, when Aurelian reached formal ascension age, tradition required a display. Not combat. Not war. Presence. The arena filled once more, the same stone chamber where Lucas had once trembled. Aurelian stepped forward. He did not expand his field aggressively. He did not seek submission. He simply released his presence. It was vast. Controlled. Led. Observers felt it, not as weight. As balance. Like standing at the center of something stable. Even Vareth lowered his head, not forced. Respectful. The Empress stood beside Lucas. You see now, she said quietly. Lucas nodded. He doesn't need to prove anything. No, she agreed. He knows what he carries. Across the chamber, dragon elders bowed. Not in fear. In acknowledgement. The galaxy updated its classification that cycle. Humanity, apex strategic species. Dragon-human dynasty, stabilizing authority. But no one remembered the exact words in the archive. What they remembered was simpler. The day the Dragon Empress chose the quiet human, the galaxy expected spectacle. It expected fire. It expected dominance. It was not prepared for patience. And patience, the galaxy would learn, was far harder to defeat.